Hi, my name is Trinity Madison. I'm a registered nurse and a nursing student at ECPI University in the Nursing 444 lab class. Today, I would like to discuss hypertension so we as a community can gain a better understanding of what hypertension is, the risk factors associated with this disease process, and how we as individuals can prevent ourselves from being diagnosed with hypertension. Our learning objectives for today: by the end of this presentation, you should be able to define hypertension and list at least 3 risk factors for being diagnosed with the disease, list 3 strategies that you can take to help lower your blood pressure, and finally, share one heart-healthy lifestyle change that you can implement to help you lower your blood pressure. So to start off, what is hypertension? Hypertension is the medical term for having high blood pressure. Hypertension occurs when the pressure inside of a person's blood vessels is too high. There are different stages to hypertension that we will go over later on in this presentation, but for a general rule of thumb, hypertension is diagnosed when a person's blood pressure reading is over 140 or 90 systolic and diastolic respectively. Hypertension also has the nickname the silent killer, and that is because it may go undetected for a long period of time. Often people aren't diagnosed until they go to the doctor and have a random high blood pressure reading, or they have symptoms of something else and go in and find out that they've suffered a severe complication. So what are those severe complications that may lead someone to going to be seen and finding out that they have high blood pressure? Well, starting up at the top, we may see vision changes. The excess pressure in our eyes can cause us to have blurry vision that doesn't go away even with rest. We also run the risk of having a stroke when our blood pressure gets so high the blood flowing to our brain can cause a blood vessel to rupture and we have a stroke. With the increased demands on the heart, we also run the risk of having a heart attack or going into heart failure. And the increased blood pressure to all of the organs can lead to multi-system organ failure or diseases such as kidney failure. As we touched on a few moments ago, there are different stages of hypertension. We expect a typical healthy person's blood pressure to be less than 120 systolic over less than 80 diastolic. As we go up in our blood pressure, we move up the stages of hypertension. Typically, individuals are diagnosed with hypertension when their blood pressure reaches over 140 systolic over 90 diastolic. And you can see as we take another step up into our stages of hypertension, we reach the hypertensive crisis. These are our medical emergencies and can lead to the diseases such as strokes or heart attacks that we just talked about. That is when our blood pressure reaches 180 or above systolic or diastolic of 120 or above. These are true medical emergencies, and if you have a blood pressure this high, please go seek help. So now that we know the different stages of hypertension, we want to know who's at risk for developing hypertension. And the answer is everybody. There are certain things that put us at higher risk, though, that some individuals can modify to help decrease their risk. The first is obesity. So we want to increase our activity level. We don't want to lead a sedentary lifestyle. We want to make sure we're engaging in moderate activity and keeping our heart healthy. Going along with that, we want to look at our diet. Reducing our sodium intake can help lower our risk for having high blood pressure. So can decreasing your alcohol intake and increasing your water intake. And lastly, smoking tobacco. It causes a shrinkage of your blood vessels, which in turn raises your blood pressure and can lead to a hypertension diagnosis. So now that we know that we're all at a risk for having high blood pressure, what can we do to help decrease our chances of being diagnosed with hypertension? The Mayo Clinic shares some good information on what we can do to reduce our individual risk of developing hypertension. The first is making sure we're being active, not living a sedentary lifestyle. The recommendation is that each person gets at least 30 minutes of moderate physical activity every day. That can include brisk walking, going for a jog, or riding a bike. We also want to make sure we're maintaining our weight so we're not falling in the obesity class on the BMI scale. Decreasing our sodium intake, increasing more water into our diet, and removing alcohol. Smoking cessation can also help as we have better dilated blood vessels and we decrease our blood pressure. And finally, managing our stress. Stress can make us all have high blood pressure and we all get stressed at times. So making sure we're managing our stress effectively can in turn lower your blood pressure. So to help lower our sodium intake in our diet, there is something that has been created called the DASH eating plan, which lowers sodium intake in our everyday meals. The typical recommendation for adult sodium intake in 24 hours is 2,300 milligrams of sodium a day. When we're following a low sodium diet, they lower that recommendation down to 1,500 milligrams of sodium a day, but it may be recommended by a provider for each individual to have a lower sodium intake. So, how do we do that when all the sodium is in all of the foods that we eat? Well, we want to recommend eating a heart healthy, well rounded diet. This includes eating fruits and vegetables, whole grains, and increasing your water intake, and staying away from full fatty foods. We want to decrease our intake of processed foods, decrease eating out, and cooking for ourselves. That way, we can monitor the amount of sodium we put into our food. Now that we know that everybody's at risk and we've talked about all the changes that we can do, what is a heart healthy lifestyle choice that you can make to help lower your risk for developing hypertension? We want to start small. I don't expect everybody to be able to just go to the gym and start fresh. So we want to take small steps towards a larger goal, and that can be done in a variety of ways. We want to increase the cardiac output of our hearts to get our blood flowing more appropriately throughout our body. We can do that simply by getting our heart rate up. We can do that by increasing our activity levels slowly but surely. We want to make sure we're getting at least 30 minutes of moderate activity every day. And you can do extra little exercises that you don't even think about. One way is to take the stairs instead of taking an elevator, or when you're going to the store, park further back in the parking lot. That way you have a longer walk to and from your car. We've already talked about eating a well-balanced diet, including fruits, vegetables, and whole grains, decreasing our alcohol and sodium intake, and lastly, increasing our water intake. There are different recommendations for the minimum water intake that each person should have. For women, it is generally recommended that we have at least 73 ounces of water daily, and for men, that recommendation is at least 100 ounces of water daily. Be sure to consult with your provider if there's any questions, comments, or concerns. There's been a lot of information shared today about hypertension, so let's review the key points. Hypertension is a disease that can be preventable and managed through lifestyle changes. We know that some small changes can equal big health outcomes. By lowering our risk factors for hypertension, we decrease our chances for being diagnosed with it and having further complications. So, what can you do to help lower your blood pressure and prevent yourself from being diagnosed with hypertension? I would like to take this moment to thank everybody for watching this presentation, for sticking with it, and I hope you learned something about high blood pressure and what you can do to help improve your lifestyle choices. Finally, we talked about learning objectives at the beginning of this presentation, and it is time to find out if you met those objectives. So, using the link above or by scanning the QR code, you can take a link to a 6-question quiz that will review your knowledge about hypertension and the points that we went over today. I look forward to having responses. If you have questions for me, please leave them down in the comments below. Otherwise, go on out there and lower your risk for hypertension.